we are back up and running once again. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie, and I have VM, the wildebeest, who is on camera with me this morning. And driving around on Wendy, and I think going to go and check up on what's happening with that buffalo carcass, is Scott and Jandre. We also have Jess and Nikki in FC, and Eugene is always running around fighting off gremlins. I stopped over here to look at the squirrel, but it seems to have disappeared. They were having a little bit of a fight, chattering away to each other, but they seem to have disappeared for now. We can continue on our mission. I'm heading up towards the hyena den to see if there's been any activity there last night. I've just heard on the Game Drive channel that those lionesses are still on the buffalo carcass. So whatever happened last night, whether or not the hyenas came, the lions are still there, the lionesses anyway. Once I'm done with the hyena den, we're going to head across to Arathusa and see what we can find on that side. Oh, bounce. Oh, disappearing off. Okay, so Squirrel and Dacre are not feeling like they want to be on television this morning. Let us carry on with our mission. I was busy talking about the Birmingham boys mating with a lioness. And we still haven't had full clarification on whether it's a Styx lioness or an Nkahuma lioness. There's differing answers on that depending on who you ask. I'm waiting to see if I can get hold of some pictures. I believe that we have acquired some, so I'm going to have to go back and have a look and see if we can work out who this lioness is. I suspect, and it is just a suspicion, that it's an Nkahuma lioness, just because I cannot think of any other reason that those lionesses would be, the two young ones would be off on their own without the two older ones and without amber eyes. I could of course be completely wrong, they might be off somewhere different. It's very difficult to tell, and it's not uncommon for prides to split off during a takeover like this, or in response to any other kind of stressful situation. Now, it was a little bit nippier this morning. It was after all of that build-up and the clouds coming in from across from the sort of the west and south of us. It blew around us, there was lots of wind, there was a little bit of rumbling, thunder and lightning, and one or two raindrops, just enough for us to put the rain covers over the cars when we got back last night from the sunset safari, and it promptly all blew away and there was no rain. But it is a glorious start to the morning, a little bit nippy, I think, just trailing behind that storm front. 15 degrees, which is 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Definitely not our coldest morning, and also we know now that give us another half an hour with the sun coming up and it's going to be blazing hot once again. Definitely going to be a shorts and t-shirt kind of a day. This is where I went wrong. I'm sure of it now. Now, on the subject of hyenas, good morning Impala, let's stop and have a look at you. No, don't disappear, it's okay. As we watch these pretty impalas in the morning light, one of our regular viewers, Kevin, was watching the dam camera last night and listening to the sounds coming through, and says that he heard hyenas calling, and it definitely sounded like they were close enough to have been in the vicinity of the buffalo carcass, and I'm sure that they know it's there. It's one of those myths that the bush holds and won't tell us unless we look at the tracks, but it could well be that they paid a visit and the lionesses chased them off. They might just be waiting their turn to have a moment to enjoy what's left of that rather decayed carcass. Oh, all nibbling around the same tree. It's a knobthorn, which is why they're all clustered around it, because the knobthorns are getting their bright new brand new leaves. And for little impalas, having a tree pushed over by an elephant like that is the perfect snack point. Oh, running in to join them. Not often you get to see a whole load of impalas nibbling around the same tree. They appear to be loving it. Look at that female on the right. Now, if you've ever fallen victim to a knobthorn whilst walking through the bush or driving through the bush, you'll know that it comes with some fairly vicious, tiny but hooked thorns that have a way of piercing the skin and looping all the way around inside. But that's not an issue for these guys. What's going on here? The males are still causing a bit of chaos every now and again. They decide they might have a chance to mate. I'm not sure if you could hear it, but that was the grunting sound. Here he comes. He's going to come around the front. Oh no, he's tucked. For some reason he's chased all of the females away. I think he thought that it was a good idea to have a look and see. Oh, sorry. Here he is. He's the one making those grunting sounds. But he's got the wrong time of year. Here he comes. Sprinting around the back there. Definitely out to cause trouble this morning, that boy. I think he's going to go and join the females there at the tree. Quite a big breeding herd, actually. Here he is, grunting away. Now, it's not uncommon for the males to get a little bit confused by all of the pregnancy hormones that are floating around in the air, or the sense of the pregnancy hormones. But that usually happens a little bit later in the season, not just yet. Although looking at that female who's nibbling on the branches on the left there, she's definitely looking pudgier than an impala should. You can start to see the bulge of the baby there. It's amazing to think that they can still run and jump and do all the things that impala do. Here you go, you can see that little bulge. And if we compare it to the one on the right, I was going to say she looks much sleeker. She does to a point. She was probably one of last year's babies, so not quite old enough to mate. And if not, then the one on the right definitely was a bit further to the right. There you can see that sleek body shape of an impala not encumbered by a pregnancy. And these impala have been lovely, but we have reached my landmark in the road. That termite mound over there on the curve of the road, that's where we're heading. We're going to go around the side, look at the marula tree with the broken branch, and then we're going to cross left into the block and find the hyena den. Let's see if we can do this without making a mistake. And just to let you know, for those of you who are new to this whole concept, this is a live safari, so everything that you're seeing is happening right here. We are on Aubrey's Road in Djuma Game Reserve. We moved between Djuma and Arathusa, and everything you see is happening in real time right here in the Sabi Sands. And it's also interactive, so you can send us through questions, anything that you'd like to ask, you can do so. like how to get a Land Rover into low range, there we go. You can do that on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv, and we'd love to hear from you. If you are a new viewer, let us know. We can fill you in on all the comings and goings and happenings that have been around the reserve in the last few months. And the joys of the live safaris as well is like yesterday. The joys of the live safaris is that you get to watch me get lost on the odd occasion, which I'm going to try not to do. We need to make a nice clear path through here. Now we have just left that impala herd, but I mentioned that they were pregnant. A lot of the females were pregnant. And Carol, you were wondering when it is that impala mate. They mate around May and the beginning of June. And there's a lot of chaos in the impala world when they do. The males run around grunting, the females run away from them and play hard to get. And a male that has acquired a harem will be with that harem for somewhere in the region of a week, during which time he will not eat, he will not sleep, he will just fight off other competitors and mate with females. And by the time he gets to the end of that week, he's so exhausted and so out of condition that the next male takes his chance and comes in and keeps the genetic line nice and fresh. I'm following my car tracks, which feels like it could be a bad idea given the amount of time I spent cruising around this block yesterday, but we're on the right track. We are definitely on the right track. So start keeping your eyes peeled for hyenas. Made it first time. This is definitely the hyena den. And just as we're approaching on the subject of antelope breeding time, Lisa G, who comes to us all the way from Phoenix, wanted to know whether or not all of the antelope species mate at the same time and give birth at the same time. And the answer is no, they don't. Not all of them have a strict breeding season. So for example, something like waterbuck, they don't necessarily have a strict breeding season, and kudu as well. That being said, they do have a peak mating time and a peak birthing time, which makes total sense because you kind of want to have your calves at a time when you've got enough access to resources. So you want to time it around the big rains so that you can provide both for yourself and for the lactating necessities of having a young calf or a young lamb. Hello, Baba. Navigate our way in here so we can get you a view of another lactating mammal and her baby. Good morning, Mommy and baby. You're not looking quite as round as you were yesterday. Yesterday you were looking absolutely enormous. Look how fast her digestive system has worked. For those of you who were watching the sunrise safari yesterday, she looked much as though she'd swallowed a beach ball. And look how flat her stomach is now. It's incredible. And that little fluffy thing below her is her young cub who's having morning breakfast. Very, very peaceful scene. Every now and again gives a little wriggle. Look at the little tail. We'll give baby some time to feed, and there's a good chance he or she is going to be up and about and curious. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time, we've watched on and off this little baby from really, really tiny to a little ball of black fur and wrinkles to getting a little bit bigger, starting to get spots coming through. I'm just going to be quiet for a moment because I think you might even be able to hear him suckling. Oh, exhausting work. Being a mom. Now, the wonderful thing about hyena dens, and this is information for new viewers, is that it's the one place that you can really get to investigate a little bit as to what's happening with the little foot coming out every now and again, what's happening with the clan dynamics. So hyenas live in clans of one or two dominant females with a matriarch right at the top. And generally they're quite nomadic, so if they don't have babies, they're quite happy to go off on their own or in pairs or in threes and roam the clan's territory, occasionally marking the boundaries. But they will come back every now and again to visit the den site. Only mothers with cubs will be pretty much in permanent residence at a den. And so whilst you sit and watch them with peaceful scenes like this, you get an opportunity to watch incoming individuals. And if you spend enough time with them, you can start to work out who's who and where they fall in that very strict hyena ranking system. Now, we suspect that this female is the matriarch, but we need to spend a bit more time with them to really truly confirm that. I think that she is. She's very big. She's quite an old lady. You can see the balding patches starting to develop on her face. She's got a big scar on her back. Very, very easy to identify. I think all hyenas are beautiful, but she's maybe a bit less beautiful than the others. Her ears are a little bit tatty. Either way, she's proved to be a very successful mom. As for the other young cubs, there's 3 more of them that we see regularly around the den site. They're a little bit older. I think they are something in the region of 7 months for 2 and then 9 months for the oldest one who's around here. And they're right at that age when they are going to start to really explore the area around. So even without the adults, they've been ranging further and further afield. Still going to be probably another couple of months before they fully leave the den site. They're still vulnerable, they're still tiny, and they're still not capable of fending for themselves in any way, really. But they have been roaming around. Now, what we did notice when I got lost yesterday, I wasn't lost. Lost is a strong word. I was slightly disoriented in the middle of this block there-ish, and we found another termite mound with a hole. And I found another possible den site, so they might be switching between them. Anyway, we have this wonderful scene, but they're looking quite relaxed. So let's see what this site looks like from the air, and I will get back to you a little bit later.
Good morning, everyone. Isn't this a wonderful concept, using the drone to film us? I hope our audio is in sync with it, as it may not be. But follow us, we're going to head down, we're on our way to the Djuma lioness. So come along, and we're going to get a beautiful view out to the east as we drive down Walberg's Road. You may see Inge's house off to the left, depending on what angle Andrew is shooting at. And it is an absolutely stunning morning, and we couldn't resist but get you guys an aerial view of this magical area we get to explore. The Inkuhuma lioness are going to be on that buffalo carcass, but that's where we're heading. It's kind of slightly north of where we're going. We're heading straight east at the moment towards the sun. There's the drone. I wonder where it is. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you guys are slightly north of us now, looping around. You should be able to see some beautiful clouds behind us. It's a magical day. Looking forward to the adventure that lies ahead with all of you guys. And I'm told that you are going to be brought back down to my vehicle at surprised by a sudden jolt and change of scenery. There's a strong chance you're already with me and Nikki can't tell me that, but I don't know. Our radios are making everybody's lives here a bit trickier. Hopefully the problem will be solved tomorrow.
Warning stations, Misika.
Your flight. I think Andy did a good job giving you a full 360 view of our surroundings. Buffalo from here, and we're probably 500 meters away from it. Jandre, am I dreaming, or can you smell something rotting? Jandre is nodding his head, and we are can still smell it. I wonder if the lioness will be still as possible. I have seen lions feeding on maggot-ridden carcasses. It actually makes it a bit easier because the meat is extra matured. Anyway, while we make our way there, we are going to send you back to Jamie at the hyena den, and we'll be sure to let you know as soon as we get to that smelly carcass and be those lioness or maybe some hyena feeding on it. See you later.
Never fear, I haven't left the hyena den. I am just on a slight reconnaissance mission, so to speak, around some of the more open patches in this area. I say open, nothing's open in this block, but I just want to do a double check and see if we can locate the older cubs and see what they're up to. But if we don't see them in some of the clearings that I've learned that they like to be in, then we'll head back to mommy and baby again. Especially if baby decides to get up and about. They have a wonderful level of curiosity, those baby hyenas. Just wanted to double check. They like this open patch, and they like an open patch just there that's got a load of baboon's tail growing out of it. So far it's looking very quiet. Dodge the apple leaf. I want to drive over that. Okay, so this is one of their preferred clearings or openings. Doesn't look like there's much happening here. They like to come and lie down in that spot. Definitely very quiet. Okay, continue on our mission, see if we can check the other side of the den as well. Now I've mentioned that there are 3 sets of cubs at this den site. There's one oldest one, then there's 2 who are the same age, from the same mother, they're twins, and then there's the youngest one. And Marty from California, you were wondering what the size of a hyena litter is. It averages between 1 and 2. There are recorded cases of 3, but the hyenas only really have 2 nipples, so they tend to stick to around 2. And very often the mortality rate is quite high for hyena cubs, especially if they're the same age. There's a lot of competition. This is the area I was talking about that I accidentally discovered earlier. There's a leg of something. Very hard to tell. Quite a short bone. It's definitely one of the legs, hard to tell. But something quite short, stumpy and quite thick. Or, actually, it could be an ankle bone of something. Trying to peer in. I think that looks like a buffalo leg, or part of a buffalo leg, to me. Now, it's not uncommon for hyenas to bring food back to around the den. Typically, they try and avoid bringing it right to the den, but we've seen these hyenas do it a couple of times. But something like that is definitely going to attract all kinds of extra parasites and flies. Anyway, sorry, to finish up with Marty's question while I relocate us, or attempt to relocate us back to the den site. Marty, you were wondering about average or litter size of a hyena, and I said that they can have 2, but quite often the mortality rate is quite high, especially if it's 2 females. And that's because they're in serious competition with each other. And very often they get quite vicious with the other cub, and they're already trying to struggle to establish their place in the hierarchy, even at a very, very young age. And they can actually, even at that age, kill each other. But what's also a very interesting article that I read is not only is there a threat of siblicide, or canism, where one sibling causes the death of the other one, but there's also the threat of infanticide from one of the other members of the clan, especially if they're not related to the mother. So if she is a high-ranking female and she responds to the bullying of her cubs, she may actually kill the cub in the process of disciplining him. It's going to be easiest to come up this way. Oh, it's almost hat. It is hat time. The sun's already nice and bright and high. You can see my dilemma with this den site. It's not exactly like you can speedily rotate between one side and the other in the way that you could with the other 2 den sites that we've been visiting. It's a little bit more tricky than that, but we manage. I'm hoping that they're going to stay at this den site. It's a little bit more, or it's at least a bit better drained than the other one was. The other one was right on a drainage line and probably got fairly waterlogged at some point during those big rain, or that big rain that we had, which I think is the reason that they moved, because they did move straight afterwards. Ducking down under a tree. Watch your heads, everybody. Find another nice view of this female and her baby. sorry, we're back again to have a look at you. Every now and again a little ear pops up. She's still got a round belly, but I can't get over how fast she managed to digest whatever it was she'd snacked on. Now this den is a little bit tricky, this termite mound that they've chosen as their den site. But the way that a hyena den works is in order to ensure the safety. Now we know about termite mounds and their networks of tunnels, but obviously those are designed for termites. So what hyena do is that they come to a den site and they actually excavate a little bit. And the way that it is designed is that only the cubs can really fit into any of the major tunnels. I've seen adults line entrances, but they don't go any further than that. It's the cubs who actually move in and excavate around the tunnel. Now Lindsay, you were wondering how much space there is inside it. There's quite a bit of space. They often have interconnecting tunnels, so you'll see a hyena cub disappear into one entrance and then pop out in the other. And the cubs, even when they're very tiny, have a natural instinct to keep those holes open and to create entrances and exits and sleeping chambers that only they can fit into. And that really helps to keep them protected. So if they're in that narrow tunnels, even something like a leopard isn't going to be silly enough to go and stick its nose in there to try and find them. So although all of the other predators, because hyenas' dens do smell, so all of the other predators will know that there's babies in there, they just won't be able to get them. And I have heard of, I've never seen it myself, but I have heard of the occasional circumstance where lions try to dig hyena cubs out. And at the reserve I used to work at, we had one named Kalahari Jr. who went on a little bit of a hyena spree where he targeted and killed a couple of adults, but he never got to the babies as far as I know, because they are just so well tucked away in that den. And I always like to imagine those tunnels as nice cozy little spaces for the cubs to curl up in. Probably in reality they are nice and cozy. They're probably also very smelly and full of parasites. But a den site is the perfect recipe for success. It's interesting that hyenas have evolved this manner of keeping their cubs safe. And brown hyena do it too. Their den sites are usually slightly different. They're quite often in little caves or rocky crevices. But I have seen them den in termite mounds in the same way spotted hyenas do. Oh, sun in her eyes. Just using her paw there to try and shade her face. Maybe even scratch a little bit of an itch. Looking around, but still perfectly relaxed. Now we saw that buffalo leg earlier, and we've been talking about the hyenas calling around the Djuma Dam camera, and Scott has made his way back to the buffalo carcass. Let us see what he has found there. I'll be back with you a little bit later.
Just a friendly warning to any of you who may be a bit squeamish. You may want to close your eyes as Jean-Andre takes you on a tour through this carcass. It's Not the prettiest of scenes, but really, really interesting. There is an absolute hive of activity here, and there's so much activity from all the maggots that there's actually steam coming off this buffalo. There's so much energy and warmth coming from the maggots feeding furiously on the rotting and decaying meat that it's creating quite an interesting scene, one that I haven't seen for quite some time. So take a closer look, but be warned. It is not the prettiest of images. Look at that steam. There must be millions of maggots now, all jostling to get into the best position. And it's almost alive. Look at all of the movement there. Absolutely incredible. No sign of any lion here, nor hyena, which actually boggles my mind. I cannot believe that the hyena are not having a field day here. And other carnivores that I'm guessing will come onto the scene will be vultures. There's a few lingering around nearby, and they're probably full-bellied from feeding on it possibly yesterday when the lioness were not here to defend it. But as things heat up today, I think there may be an influx of vultures coming to this area. Look at all of those maggots. Can you believe it? Now, as much as us humans generally despise flies, this is a great example of how important they are. Because if it wasn't for all these maggots feeding on the rotting, decaying flesh, this carcass could result in a disease or just general waste, really. But they're making sure nothing goes to waste. They're very, very important animals in the ecosystem, and even though sometimes they make our lives a misery, they are hugely, hugely important. And this is a good example of how successful they can be and how quickly they can capitalize on scenarios like this. Can you believe all of this steam and energy coming off the kill? Absolutely phenomenal. A very different scene to the one you're enjoying with Jamie at the hyena den. And Donna on Twitter asks a good question. She would like to know how old the carcass is. Well, Jamie found it on Monday, but there's a strong chance that the lioness were on it on Sunday night or possibly even Saturday evening. So call it 5 or 6 days old now. And as gruesome as this scene appears, there is still going to be quite a lot of meat that large carnivores can feed on. Be it hyenas, hungry lions, maybe even a leopard could arrive on the scene for all we know. And it's hard to believe that anything would be willing, other than maggots rather, anything would be willing to feed on it. Thankfully we are parked in an area where the wind is in our favor and can't really smell too bad of a odor, but I promise you from about 500 meters away we started getting whiffs of the smelly carcass, and I'm guessing that the hyena in this area must just be scared of the lioness that have been here, and that's why they haven't come in, because with their incredibly powerful sense of smell they must certainly know about it, or maybe they know about another easier meal elsewhere, who knows. But I am certainly looking forward to spending some time here, maybe returning a little bit later. I'm going to keep an eye on this area, even if we're further away, to see if any vultures are circling above, because it will be incredible if we can get a vulture feeding frenzy. The last one that I managed to share with you was in probably November or December last year, and it's when the Birmingham Coalition of Lion had actually abandoned one buffalo carcass because they had successfully killed another one in the night. And we saw about 40 or 50 vultures descending in on the kill, which was wonderful. And on the topic of vultures descending in to finish off the remains here. Bob in Iowa would like to know if the vultures will actually feed on the maggots. And I don't think they will actively feed on them. They would prefer to get the meat, but through default, I'm sure 1 or 2 maggots are going to end up in the bellies of the vultures as they descend on it and feed quite frantically. If it does happen, it's going to be a spectacle to behold. Vultures are incredibly vocal, squabbling and squawking to try and get into the best spots. And like I say, in that feeding frenzy, I'm certain a few maggots will be swallowed. We're going to send you back to Jamie and give you one last look at the steaming carcass before we do, and then probably drive around the general area. If I could suggest that we, or you guys, keep an eye on the Djuma waterhole camera for any sign of those 2 lionesses. They may have departed this area last night, who knows, but I've got a feeling they could still be lurking around, so maybe they're going to pop up at the Djuma waterhole for another drink. And Eddie Abbey's just come up with a great idea, and that would be to put a time lapse on this decaying carcass and to see what other animals come in to finish off the remains. Sadly, I don't have the right tool to perform that. Ideally, a camera trap or something that can do delayed exposures or take a picture every minute or so would be the tool for the job, and we could strap it onto a tree at the base of the carcass right close by. But I don't have the right toys to do that, sadly, and maybe that'll be one of the next toys I will add to my collection. But thanks for that great idea, and failing a time lapse, we will come here and keep showing you guys various images of it, and maybe you guys with your screenshots can put together something for us. That would be highly appreciated. But I think this is enough for now, and until any other animals return, we're going to send you back to Jamie and enjoy the more peaceful and tranquil scenes at the hyena den.
Welcome back, and I completely take back what I said before about her digestive system. She still looks like she swallowed a beach ball. Look at her, she's absolutely enormous. She's huge. She just got up a few moments ago, uprooted baby, but it looks as though she's going to come back towards the den, so hopefully little one will pop out again. He immediately went straight to bed. Here she comes. Or is she going to go? No, she's going to go round the back. Oh, that's the termite mound. Okay, she's gone to lie down on the other side, looks like. Let's see if baby pops his head out. Now that mom is still here. Otherwise we're going to have to do a loop around and all the way back. Here for one moment and just see what happens. There is another entrance to the hyena den on that side that she's gone to. Just want to see if they're connected, if baby pops out here. If not, we can do quite a quick loop and just see what she's up to. I hear that you've been having a look at that buffalo carcass, which is looking lovely apparently. Just goes to show how impressive the digestive system of all of these animals are, especially these hyena. That's something that they would eat with relish and be absolutely fine after. Okay, let's reposition. We mentioned a lot that we were thinking maybe those hyenas were going to come through and try and steal that buffalo carcass away from the lionesses. Now, hyenas do have a very bad reputation as being complete scavengers and thieves of other animals' hard work, but the truth is they're also very, very efficient hunters. And Kathy, who comes from Nevada, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Kathy was wondering if a hyena could ever take down a hippo. Interesting point. I think lots of hyena, and quite possibly an injured hippo, maybe, or a calf that they've managed to separate from its mother. I'm sure that there are recorded cases, I'm sure I've heard about recorded cases of hyenas getting hold of hippos. Possibly, but definitely not something like a full-grown bull or a full-grown cow that is in perfectly good health. They would definitely struggle with one of those. But yes, they could take down an injured one or get hold of a calf, especially in areas where there's clans of up to 40, 50 hyenas. If they band together in large numbers, then they'd be more than capable of taking down larger prey. Not sure how many recorded cases there are, but I'm sure it's happened. And as I said, very, very efficient hunters. Higher success rates in terms of hunts initiated versus hunts that are successful. Much higher success rate than something like a lion. Hello, Mommy. Where's your bubba? Where's your bubba? Sitting and surveying her territory. She's sitting right at the other entrance to the den. You can see where that smooth sandy patch is covered in tracks. And she's looking like the queen of the castle. Oh, down again. And she's off. Wonder if she's going to go and call. Nope, she's off on her own mission. And probably what she is going to do is head out. She's not looking hungry. She's not going off to find food. She's going to head away from the den and probably find a nice shady spot, possibly a nice comfortable drainage line, and she'll spend the rest of the day sleeping there. And she'll come back here around the evening time, most likely, to give her cub another feed. And then she'll spend the night scavenging, looking for carcasses, unless she's feeling too full, which she is looking very, very pudgy at the moment. And I think that is our cue to take our leave of this hyena den. It's too thick for us to follow her without causing the bush and the car some massive damage. So let's leave it for now. At least we had our brief view of the little one. Still not sure where the other three are hiding. This is a huge block filled with possibilities. And I wouldn't be surprised if at their age they're actually living in a separate den. It's quite possible. Let us continue on our way. I want to head across to the western side of Djuma and then across into Arathusa and see if we can get any updates from there. I said that she looks like a beach ball, and she certainly does. Try and get out of here. Now, Carol, you were wondering if that could be possibly caused by the fact that she might be pregnant. I don't think so. I think her cub is too young, and she's also still lactating. I'm trying to think what the the soonest that a hyena could be pregnant after having a baby. But they do wait about at least a year before they have a new set of cubs, unless something happens to their cubs. So no, she's not pregnant. She has just eaten that much food. I don't know what it was, I don't know where she found it, but she certainly had a solid, wholesome meal at some point. Definitely looking very, very full. It's actually also quite hard to see with older females when they are pregnant, because they in the past have eaten so much like that female, as well as the fact that they have experienced several pregnancies in their lives. What happens is their stomach almost looks distended, and they always look a little bit larger than some of the younger females, and that is just because they are older. They've sort of stretched out their stomach, possibly even perforated that muscle wall, almost like a hernia, and they get those big loose flaps of skin. That was a much easier path back into the road. Driving once again past the breeding herd of impala, who are starting to show signs of little bulging tummies, and we've also discussed the enormous stomach of that female hyena and whether or not she's pregnant. Now Jason, you've said that given what we saw yesterday, you have to wonder if pregnancy reduces food consumption. Now I'm not quite sure which incident you're referring to or what it is we looked at yesterday, but in terms of the overall question, it's a very good point. Given what I understand from pregnant friends and pregnant relatives, it certainly doesn't reduce food consumption in humans. And I imagine for animals it is much the same. You've seen how much that hyena can eat. They can probably squeeze 2 small babies in there and a giant meal. That they'd be quite happy with that. I also suppose in terms of food consumption, so much more of it is being processed rapidly to pass on nutrients to the fetus. So their food consumption might increase, but it's maybe processed a lot faster, so they don't necessarily have to take up that much space with those enormous bellies. Just a thought, just a theory. I'm not sure how anatomically correct it is, but yeah, I can see exactly what you mean about how babies might reduce the space that you have in the abdominal cavity. We're going to be seeing lots of pregnant animals as the months progress, and lots of births. There'll be, first the impala births will come, then the wildebeests will come. It's going to be awesome. Talking about pregnancy and those large hyenas, Lisa, you've caught me out. You've asked me a question I should know the answer to, and I'm going to find the answer for you, but I shouldn't have to look in my book, and I'm going to have to. You want to know how long hyenas gestate for? I think it's somewhere in the region of 80 days. But hold on a minute. Let's see what we can figure out. I know I should know that. I apologize. It's just something that's gone out of my head. Sometimes there's just too many competing facts. Let's see if we can multitask this. 274. I wish I could drive with my knees. My legs are just not long enough. I know the boys can do it, I can't. Whoop. 200 gestation, 90 days, not 80 days. Sorry Lisa, I do have an answer for you, but I shouldn't have had to look in my book. 90 days is the gestation period, so roughly 3 months for a spotted hyena. Amazing to think of the various gestation periods that the animals do go through. Imagine carrying a baby for 2 years, or just under 2 years, like an elephant. 22 months of pregnancy, that's quite an investment in one little baby. But then of course they've got that whole herd structure to help keep them safe. Whereas something like lions or leopards or hyenas, their mortality rate for their young is so much higher. They need to be able to reproduce rapidly if they lose their cubs. I can hear that black-headed oriole again in almost exactly the same place. It's taunting me. Yesterday I tried to find it for the viewers. Where are you? There you are. It's in the top right-hand corner of the marula tree. Can you see him, wildebeest? Cool. Haha! Caught you on camera. Black-headed oriole. Not the world's best view, but I really was determined that I was going to show that particular individual out and about. Continue on our mission. I'm checking along this edge. I just want to make sure that we haven't missed any crossings of junior. But I believe that whilst we've had the black-hooded oriole, Scott has some Wahlberg's eagle or Wahlberg's eagle to show you. Just a brief cameo and then you'll be back once again with me. So I'll see you a little bit later.
Good. Welcome back everyone, and Jamie's just told me that we have gone live over the Game Drive channel. We are getting desperate now to try and do whatever it takes to show you awesome images, and this is certainly one of them. Look at that. To the same tree year in and year out to nest in their same nest. Now, I'm not too sure if they've actually decided to try and build a new nest, but as Jean-Andre zooms out, you'll see one very large structure of sticks, which is the nest that I think they use yearly, and then below that there's another platform being built. So I'm not sure if they're wanting to get a new nest. Yes. And it's remarkable for me how these birds can travel thousands and thousands of kilometers away from us during the winter months and then return to the exact same tree. For now though, they're not doing any moving, and you can see their feathers are all ruffled up, trying to keep as warm as possible. And most raptors or birds of prey will only become active once it has heated up a little bit, because it makes for efficient and effortless flying, as they can ride the hot air thermals rising up off the earth. And that's why I think we've still maybe got an hour or so before the vultures start getting active. And that's why we've decided to keep moving around, seeing what else we can find before possibly returning. What have you guys seen? As I was saying before, returning to the buffalo kill, I really do hope that the vultures get their act together and realize there's a very easy meal waiting there for them. Well, because we are in a bad signal area here, we are going to link you back to Jamie and continue south and west towards the southern reaches of Djuma, in the hope that we may find some action there. I don't think many people have been driving around that area this morning, so anything could be happening, and that's why we would like to move off to search that area for anything interesting. But back to Jamie, and we will keep you updated as soon as we find something else to show you.
Welcome back, and we do apologize for the black screen that you were experiencing. And if you bear with me a moment, I'm also going to put my phone back onto airplane mode so we don't get any interference coming through. Our comms occasionally play up and interfere with the signal, but it's something that we're definitely working on. I've once again returned to Impala Plains Road, or Impala Road. It's been a long time actually since I was on this road. Checking everywhere for leopard tracks. I know that Tingana occasionally uses this road as a highway between Djuma and Arathusa. Not sure where he is at the moment, haven't heard much from him or about him. This is where I first found Shadow and her cub on foot when I started working for Wild Earth. It's amazing how as you drive around areas, how you get different memories attached to them. What is sitting up in that tree? Far away. It's got a very upright posture and it's quite a big bird. I don't know if you can see it from there, wildebeest. I think we're going to have to scoot a little bit closer. It's very big. I'm thinking Martian eagle. There you go. You can see it right at the top there on the right. Let's see if we can scoot a bit closer and see what it is. Might be a little bit tricky. Please don't fly away, bird. We want to see you. Oh, it flew away. There he goes. Oh well. You may never know. I think with a size like that, definitely wasn't a vulture just by the way that it flew. It could have been a martial eagle. It was very, very hard to see right in the sun, silhouetted. Either way, it has disappeared. We might catch up with it later on our way home. Looks like it was flying towards quarantine. to wrap up the conversation that we've been having about the hyenas, and whilst we look for leopard tracks on Impala Road, we spoke a little bit about the fact that there's reported cases of siblicide or canism, which is very, very common in bird species. So you know, many of the regular viewers will know with raptors, when they have more than one chick, the chick that hatches after the first chick is usually either bullied or a combination of being bullied and actually just pure out competition or out competing for the adult's attention to get food. But Maggie, you were wondering how it is that siblicide works in hyena cubs. And I have to be honest, I think it's a combination of serious physical aggression between them, as well as competition or out-competing them. But because it's common between two females, I think most of it, two female cubs, I think most of it comes from physical aggression. And you know, you will have experienced the sharp puppy or kitten teeth if you've got pets at home that you've had since babies. They're seriously sharp. Now factor that in, couple that with the incredible jaw strength, the crushing power of a hyena that's there even as a young baby, and you do have a recipe for serious competition between the two of them. Now it's not as common as was previously thought. Scientists are really looking into this subject now and having a look to see it happens. They know that it happens, but they're trying to see how much of it has been recorded as siblicide, whereas in fact it was caused in natural infanticide from other adult members of the clan, or whether the infanticide is as common as previously thought. And it looks as though they're leaning towards infanticide being more common than siblicide, but it is still recorded to have happened. And it's generally between female cubs. If there's one male and one female, that's probably the best combination, because the male automatically assumes a subservient role to the female. And I mentioned whilst we were sitting at that hyena den, just looking now, those cubs, the older cubs have reached the stage of development where they're quite big, and you can start to see the difference a little bit more clearly, and you can also see the difference in behavior. And one of the twins looks to me, just in terms of size, to be much smaller than the other, and I think that could well mean that there's a female and a male dynamic there. It will be interesting to see what gender that little cub is. We've had a bit of disagreement about it. I thought originally she was a female, and I know James, I believe, thought she was a female, but we're starting to see different behavior now that it's a little bit older and had to face being put in its place by other adults. So we're still not entirely sure as to the sex of that cub. Go on to Triple M boundary, just have a look at these clouds. Sorry, there is a power line in the way. Really interesting shapes there. Now I'm going to be traversing, I think this is just the tail end of a cold front, but I'm going to be traversing the rather bumpy, notoriously bumpy Triple M boundary before hopping onto Arethusa. In the meantime, let's see what Scott is up to at Treehouse Dam, and I will catch up with you a little bit later. So from clouds to clouds, here is what Scott is looking at.
Wow, a very similar view to where you left Jamie, but as Jeandre zooms out, you'll notice we are in an entirely different location, and a very pretty one. We're here at the Treehouse Waterhole, and I'm not too sure what this red or purple algae is on the top of the water, or what causes it, but it really does look beautiful. If any of you do know what it is, please feel free to share that with us. It was green in coloration not so long ago, a few days ago, but now it's transformed into this purple tinge. There's a sandpiper on the top end of the waterhole. It's a little bit far for this camera zoom. And I've got my binos out and I'm trying to work out which one it is. All the three sandpipers that we get here, the marsh, the common and the green sandpiper, are all Palearctic migrants, which mean they come from Europe. And let's take a close look, and then I'm going to get my bird book out and we can try and identify it. Now, something to look for is the supercilium, that white eye stripe. And it descends quite far back. The color of its legs are going to be difficult to tell because it has been, oh, well, there you go. Not interested in our plans. But I'm going to get my book out quickly and see if we can work out which one it is. So, it's these three at the bottom. There's actually four sandpipers. I got mixed up there. It's the wood, the green, the common and the marsh. But I think it's definitely one of these bottom three. And I'm leaning towards the wood sandpiper because we could see that eye stripe extending behind the eye. It also did have these white spotted underparts. So I don't know what you guys think, or if any of the ornithologists who are watching know immediately what it was. But I'm going with the wood sandpiper. It could have possibly been the common, but its legs didn't seem long enough for me. And it also didn't have that white crescent in front of the wing. I didn't notice that. So that may be a new bird for the bird list. They would have arrived back in the last couple of weeks from the northern hemisphere. Hard to believe that such a small bird can make such a long journey. Good stuff. Welcome back on board with us. Sure, and it's all of a sudden heated up, I guess, as I stop moving and the wind chill factor. And on the topic of migrations, Wendy in Nebraska is interested to know if the black-headed oriole that we saw earlier, or you saw earlier with Jamie, would be the same one migrating from America. Sadly not, Wendy. We don't get any migrants from that side of the planet. All of the birds that migrate to us in South Africa would move from either Europe or Asia or Africa. So some move from South Africa into Africa, so those are the intra-African migrants, and then we get the Palearctic migrants, which move into countries further north of us, Europe and Asia. But none that I know of can make that trip across the Atlantic from America. So it'll be your own oriole over there, and it may migrate within the Americas, but won't come as far as us. And even the oriole that we get here is not a migratory one. It may have seasonal movements where it may move off a few hundred kilometers at the most, but they are essentially not migratory. and are here year-round. Look at how awesome this bird is. Perfect. Oh, there it goes. The lilac-breasted roller. Now, some of you may have been on board. Look at those colors. Well done, Jean-Ray. Some of you may have been on board with us the other day when I crashed into a marula tree. It was thanks to that bird there, not that specific one, but some of its cousins or friends nearby who are looking for its nesting cavity. I'm hoping to show the bird itself, neither of which we did very well. At least we have a few days later now redeemed ourselves.